This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We shall get started. First of all, I know that we have some rules of engagement that we went through at last month's, but it's always good to refresh, and especially for those joining us for the first time in a virtual environment. So I'm going to go over several things on the rules of engagement. First thing is that this is a public meeting and it is being recorded, as you just heard. If you experience technical difficulties, please call Ivan Jimenez at 786-973-9546 with Gannett Fleming, who's assisting us here. You can also email him at the email address as shown, and a member of our team will support you on your technical matters. And number three, council members are encouraged to enable their video cameras. We all want to see you and your beards and your long hair and all that to encourage better participation. Presenters are encouraged to enable their video cameras when presenting and to mute their microphones when not speaking. For council members only, to move a motion or an amendment, the council member shall unmute his or her microphone, clearly state his or her name for the record, and propose or second a motion. The TPO clerk will record the action and verbally confirm the council member's name. The TPC chairman will then call the vote, starting with assenting votes, and council members in favor shall state their names for the record and verbally express yay. The chairman will then call for dissenting votes. Council members in opposition shall state their names for the record and verbally express nay. So do anybody have any questions? All right, we can move on. Madam Clerk, I think we can do a roll call at this point of how many of the council members are present.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I start with Jose Ramos from the Aviation Department.
Present. I'm calling from the phone because my setup does not have video nor a microphone, so I gotta call in remotely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Manny Armada, representing RER.
Here.
Elia Nunez, representing DTPW.
Present.
Daniel Iglesias, representing FGOT.
Present.
Thank you. Barbara Henderson, representing SFRTA.
Present.
Scarlett Hammonds, representing Miami-Dade County School Board.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm here.
Thank you. And I believe Juan Toledo is here from the Expressway Authority. I saw his name, so we'll mark him as present. Akin Osayadin, City of North Miami. All right, I also saw his name pop up. Jose Sanchez, City of Hialeah.
Present.
Thank you. Jose Gonzalez, City of Miami Beach. Alan Dodd, City of Miami. Bernard Buxton Teta from City of Miami Gardens.
Present.
Julio Brea from Homestead.
Present.
Doug Yoder, Water and Sewer. Rita Carbonell, City of Doral. And Jorge Gomez, City of Coral Gables.
Good afternoon, Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have quorum.
Vivian, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Who's this speaking?
Jose Gonzalez, City of Miami Beach. I wasn't sure if you heard me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Vivian, it's Juan Toledo. I think I had an issue with my microphone.
Thank you. Got you down.
All right.
Anybody else that I haven't called? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have quorum. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for participating in the virtual environment. I know it can become a little bit difficult, but I'm glad that you're here today. So our first item here is approval of the agenda. And I think we do have an amendment to the agenda item, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item 3A has been amended to incorporate 2 ERRATA sheets, one from FDOT and one from DTPW.
All right, thank you. So do we have approval of the agenda for as amended? Anybody want to move that item?
Move it.
Was that
Julio.
Julio Brea moving?
Julio, that was Julio Brea.
Thank you.
I'll second it. Manny.
Thank you, Manny.
All right, all in favor for the approval of the agenda as amended, say aye.
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 Can there be,
Any opposed? All right, we have approval of the agenda. Okay, now, meeting minutes from our last meeting. Any comments? Any changes proposed? I'm sure everybody read it thoroughly. Does anybody want to move it without any comments as is?
Juan Toledo, move it.
Thank you.
Juan. And any second?
Julio Brea, second.
Julio, thank you. All in favor for the meeting minutes as approved? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we have approval of the meeting minutes. Let's get into the action items. We have one action item. And Madam Clerk, do you want to read it into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Resolution recommending approval of the fiscal years 2021-2025 Transportation Improvement Program as amended.
All right, thank you. And this is the TIP item, and it came before as an information item last month, as we already had the document out for public review, including agency review. So we have here today Chris Rosenberg, who took over for Mr. Carlos Roa, who had been preparing the TIP for about 30 years. And this is his first time out. So, Mr. Rosenberg, I heard you have a presentation for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So members of the committee, Mr. Chair, thank you for the time today in allowing me to present the Transportation Improvement Program. I'd like to thank all of the members of the committee and their staffs for working with the TPO in preparing this document. It is a labor of love and it's very time consuming. So on my behalf, please go back to your staffs and thank them. They did take a lot of time in putting together this document, in assuring that it was accurate, doing quality assurance and quality control, attending all of the various meetings that we had over the season. So I sincerely appreciate their time. We'll be moving through the presentation. Next slide, please. So the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, is one of our core documents that the Miami-Dade TPO prepares. It is a federally required document that is representative of the Miami urbanized area. All of the surface transportation improvements in Miami-Dade County are required to be represented in the TIP. It is a 5-year document representing fiscal years 2021 through 2025. And this document must be updated annually, which is what we are doing right now. We're bringing it to the committees and ultimately to the TPO governing board for adoption. This document is amended throughout the year. So what you are approving today could be amended throughout the year. It is not a final decision for what can happen over the next year, but it is the adoption of the current document. Next slide. So I'll just quickly walk the committee through some of the schedule and milestone achievements that we've gone through this past cycle. Every year, the TIP development cycle begins in October. That's typically right after FDOT provides our TPO governing board with their response to the TPO list of program priority projects. We then assemble the review of those materials, and beginning in December of 2019, we opened up our interactive database website open to all of the agencies represented on the committee for their submittal of their capital improvement plans and surface transportation projects into the document. Beginning in January and concluding in April, we held all of our TIP development committee meetings. Again, I was thanking your staff for attending all of those. We had 10 total this year, even with all of the situations that we had to go through this year. We had some digital meetings towards the end of the cycle that were attended very well. So I am thanking you all on behalf of the TPO for getting us through this year with all of the COVID-19 situations that we had to navigate. We brought the document first to the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee for its initial review as an informational item on April 1st. We then initiated the 45-day federally required public review period on April 6th. It is an ongoing item, and it will close on the day of the TPO Governing Board meeting on May 21st. We then attended the April 13th TPC meeting last month, which Wilson alluded to for this committee's review. I appreciate this committee's review over the last month in reviewing the document and providing any comments. Last week on May 6th, we brought the item back to CTAC, which we received an approval and endorsement of the TIP. And today, May 11th, we sit before you for your hopeful endorsement of the document. With that, we will then be recommending approval and adoption of the TIP to the TPO Governing Board meeting on May 21st. On that same day, we will be closing the 45-day public review period and disclosing any of those comments that we received from the public to the TPO Governing Board. Next slide. So this is just a quick summary of funding that represents the TIP. Overall, the TIP is over $8.2 billion in the 5-year window. That is comprised of mostly surface transportation projects that are represented by our state roads, FDOT, Turnpike, and the Expressway Authority make up about 61% of the funding. We also have our county system, which represents about 7.7%. And the other category, which is mostly intermodal improvements, including transit, aviation, and seaport, at about 30.5% of the document. I think that this is a very important slide because it shows that Miami-Dade County has moved towards a multimodal document representative of our needs in our community. I think that it's worth highlighting that our transit component has increased significantly, representative of the TPO's vision in prioritizing the SMART plan and transit supportive projects. Next slide. So each agency has selected some projects for highlight in the citizens version of the TIP. There are some chapters and narrative associated with each agency's highlight major projects. This slide summarizes some of those projects, but I would also like to point out that over the last year in our TIP development cycle, our list of program priorities was well responded to by FDOT. Almost all of our projects were funded as requested, including all of the SMART plan demonstration projects, our federal STBG SU funding to be flexed over for capital expansion in the SMART plan was represented, including some roadway projects that we also prioritized. The advancement of the Okeechobee corridor was a big highlight, and some other projects that are listed on the slide in front of you. Next slide. So as with every year, while the public review period is ongoing, we do allow agencies to submit ERRATA sheets for any changes that occurred while the public is reviewing the document. This year, we only had 2 agencies submit any requested changes, which is what our clerk mentioned when we were amending this item. The 2 agencies that submitted ERRATA sheet projects were FDOT and DTPW Public Works. FDOT submitted 3 project change requests. All 3 are just minor location and description changes to projects. DTPW Public Works submitted 32 changes, mostly are estimate revisions to reflect some recent executive orders from the mayor for the road impact fee and redistributing that funding to other projects that are now eligible for funding with that resource. Next slide. One of the big changes that we had this year in developing the TIP was we had to implement the performance management measures into our document. So basically what that is a performance-based planning approach and tracking of milestones and achievements through projects and how each one of those projects tackles one of the performance measures. So in the slide in front of you, you have what the performance measure areas are: safety, pavement management, bridge, system enhancements, and truck travel time reliability. So basically what we do is we put a face to a name, so to speak, and we've tagged the projects in the TIP for those which are addressing one of the performance measure areas. This is the first year that we are implementing this federal requirement into the TIP. So it was something new for the committee, and they were very helpful in making sure that our document was reflective and accurate of what their projects are attempting to address in the community. Next slide. Through the chair, I would now like to open the floor to any questions or comments that I have from the committee, and I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
All right. Chris, before I do, I do have a comment, and maybe, I don't know if DTPW would like to discuss, or maybe you can, is to go over, to give us a sense of the changes for the errata sheet that you pointed out for the DTPW, the 32 projects. Is there any way we can bring that up to the screen
Sure.
here?
All right, so like I mentioned, there were 32 project changes to reflect the road impact fee redistribution of funding. I had referenced that there was a recent executive order that opened the door to using this funding so that it is now eligible to be used other than capacity on maintenance activities, bridge repair type projects. So DTPW went in and took advantage to make sure that this document is as live and accurate as possible to reflect some of those changes. So if there's any way that DTPW could add to what I stated, that's kind of a general summary of what these changes are, but you know, they're basically just redistributing the funding onto new eligible projects.
Hi, this is Elia. And from what I understand, it's not just redistributing to new projects, but moving to future years. So projects that might have had funding for this year and next year that wouldn't be using all of it, some of those got shifted to new projects, and allocation of additional funds in future years will be posted to those existing projects.
Thank you, Elia.
Mm-hmm. Specifically on the bridges, we had a lot of projects in the bridge section that were ready to go into construction or about to go into design, but we didn't have funding. So this allowed us to start those now.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I'll open it up for other members. Any questions for Chris? No? All right. Okay, so without any questions, do I have a motion? This is an action item to move the item as amended.
Barbara Handrahan, I motion.
Thank you, Barbara. Do I have a second?
This is Elia, I second.
Okay, thank you, Elia. All right. All in favor of the TIP for fiscal year 2021 through 2025 as amended, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Please let it reflect that the item passed unanimously. And as Chris mentioned, thank you for all the departments. It really can't be done without your assistance. This is a great endeavor, and my hat's off to Chris for his first year doing a phenomenal job on this. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate it.
So do we have any informational items?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No? Okay. Before we adjourn, is Doug Yoder, I heard you mention Doug. Is he on?
I have not seen. Doug, are you participating? No, he did say that he may be late coming in, so.
All right. Well, I just wanted to acknowledge, I heard that this would be the last TPC meeting, that he's retiring after 40 plus years. And just wanted to acknowledge because he apparently was part of the first TPC membership roster over 40 years ago. And that's quite a feat and a true honor to be participating with him throughout the years. So anyhow, an acknowledgement for Mr. Yoder on behalf of the TPC. So with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Manny Armada, I move it.
All right, Manny. Thank you.
Julio Brea, second.
Julio Bravo, second. Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Well, thank you. Everybody stay safe, and hopefully we could return back to normal at some point in time. And I appreciate your assistance in participating with this virtual meeting. Everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.